EI, hello, and welcome back. We're ready to plow into another episode of MB2 Underground and really fertilize your minds with some industry knowledge. I'm Sarah Kiefer.
And I'm JT. Fertilize, that's a new one for an intro.
Yeah, well, I was trying to think of farming terms. I don't know much about farms.
Tractors.
Yeah.
Hay bales.
We're right on tractor. Tell you cool stuff. No? Okay, I tried.
That's awesome. Okay, here's a question for you.
Okay.
Your favorite farm animal?
None of them.
Okay, cool.
I don't know what qualifies a farm animal.
Well, like a cow or a horse or a chicken.
They're all dope.
Okay, cool. Dope, kind of like our guest today.
Yeah, exactly like our guest today.
Well, let's just get right to it.
Okay.
He is one of, I'll say, a thought leader in the orthodontic space.
I would say so.
Very well-known gentleman that I'm excited to get to spend some time with today. So without any further delay, MB2 Undergrounders, please allow me to welcome founder of Bentson Copple Patterson Associates, Mr. Chris Bentson. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, it's great to be with you.
Can we call it, what are the initials?
BCP.
BCPA.
That's perfect.
When
That's
we were
what
practicing, I was trying to say it fast. And
Is that really BCP or BCPA?
BCPA is what we call it.
Okay, perfect.
BCPA.
Yeah.
I started with a farming intro. I don't know if you caught that. But because you live on a farm. Is that correct?
A gentleman's farm, we'll call it.
What's a gentleman's farm?
Well, it's not hundreds of acres like you have out here in Texas. Ranch. It's not a ranch, but it's a gentleman's farm. 20 acres. It's got a pond. I've got tractors. I've got implements. We've got chickens. We've got a big 1 acre garden.
Oh, that's so cool.
Projects for a lifetime.
That's so awesome.
What do you have in your garden?
Only if you're allowed to say it.
Any kind of vegetable that you can imagine. And my wife is kind of responsible for what goes in it and what comes out of it. She cans. And, if things get really tough, come to my house.
Okay.
We can feed you.
That's awesome. What brought you to farm life?
I think just as a kid, I grew up in Kansas, and my grandpa was a cattle and a wheat farmer. And so we spent the summers, going to harvest with my dad, and he'd help out his dad and riding the combine. And there was just that in there. I was really into scouts and outdoor activities when I was a young kid. And when we had a chance to get some land and kind of do our own thing, I haven't had a chance to do much of it, but life is slowing down for me as I get older, so I'm spending a lot of time outside now. It's a blast.
That's awesome. Well, I asked Sarah what her favorite farm animal was. What is your favorite farm animal, since you actually have some?
Yeah, well, it's not a chicken. They're easy to keep, but they're really stupid. And so, I'm not sure. Goats I would love because they eat all the stuff that you don't want growing that you have to, get rid of it another way. But we have 2 dogs, and we've always had 2 dogs, so my favorite animal is a chocolate Labrador.
That's hard to argue with.
We have one of those right now that's incredible. And we have a Bernedoodle, so we're kind of in the hip group.
I love it. When you have quite a bit of family out there too, right?
My wife's family is sprawling, I guess I would call it. And so we have about 50 relatives of hers that live nearby, and our house is kind of the gathering place since her parents passed away for Thanksgiving, Christmas. Those birthdays are big, and we don't lock our doors there, and people just come and go, and I'll come home from work and there'll be 2 or 3 people there that I didn't know were going to be there, but hello,
welcome.
That's great.
So it's nice.
It's so different than like the life I live. My dad grew up in a small town, Minnesota, same thing. They don't lock their doors. How do you feel like that type of environment has shaped like your business mentality?
I don't like rules, and I don't know if I'd be able to survive in a big company like yours. I'm an entrepreneur, and so I was in the software business in the orthodontic space for 10 years, and then we got bought, and we had rules, and we had org charts, and I lasted a year, and
impressive.
And then we moved to North Carolina to be near my wife's family, and happened to be an orthodontist who had a company that did valuations, transitions, and recruiting. And I met him, and I said, "What are you going to do with this thing?" And he said, "I think I'm going to shut it down. It doesn't make any money." And I said, "Let me take a look at it." And I ended up buying that. We had just me and another person, and it grew to be, probably the best known and great brand and valuation transition for orthodontists. I did that for 17 years, and it's been just an incredible ride.
That's incredible.
So I want to take one quick step back. You said you started with orthodontics and software. Like, why orthodontics?
Yeah, why?
Well, I'm trained as a petroleum geologist.
Oh, that's why.
So I'm not doing that because there was no jobs.
It was a joke.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why.
I was like, I did not brush up on my petroleum geology.
I got out of Baylor down the street, and my dad said, you're done on the payroll, and so. I met a guy in church, single Sunday school class, who was with Xerox, and he said, "I'm going to leave Xerox and go sell software for this ex-IBMer that wrote a program for a local orthodontist." And this was in Atlanta, and I said, "You're an idiot." And 6 months later, I came over there, and we grew that business. And so, back in those days. Orthodontist, general dentist, every doctor. I had a friend that could write some code, and the IBM PC was just coming out. So on a green screen with a floppy hard disk, we could post a check and write a letter and things like that. And we grew that to 1,000 users. And a company called Kodak that you might have heard of ended up buying us. And there was a big aggregation of those things. So it was just right. Good timing, good luck. My kids say, "You couldn't do that today, Dad." And they may be right. I don't know.
That's why you did it then. Before we get too far down this, what is a petroleum geologist?
Well, they shoot seismic into the ground, and they try to find pockets where there's oil and gas, and then they get a bunch of money and try to get investors to drill a hole down there to see if they were right. And half the time they're right, half the time they're not. But I thought that'd be really fun. And I really did it because the last year of my undergraduate life, all the classes were outside. So we just ran all over the Southwest, looking at the land, looking at learning what you need to know. But it was great fun.
I feel so much better prepared for trivia now.
That's
on there. I've got it.
Oil. That's all you need to know. Oil.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so you guys now at BCPA, right, sir?
Yes.
Well done.
BCPA, you guys do valuations, you do consulting work, you do recruiting. I know you said you took over, or you basically took over this practice. How has that, how have you expanded maybe the core or the framework of what you inherited and grown it from the point in time 17 years ago when you started to now?
To just be to BCPA.
Yeah, well, when I started, I looked at, we'll call it dentistry, in this case, just the specialty of orthodontics, for this business as two markets. You had buyers and you had sellers.
Okay.
And at any given time in dentistry, there's only 3 to 4% of the active doctors in play for that. So I said to myself, how can we create a business that is attractive to them when they need us?
Okay.
And it's going to be when they're new, or usually when they're old, sometimes in between if they need a partner or something like that. And so I said, we're going to become an education company, and we're going to know more about what's going on in the specialties so that when we get invited to speak, and for years we go to 40 or 50 conferences a year.
Wow.
By invitation, and we tell our audiences how hard the wind's blowing, which direction it's going, and try to look into the future.
The weatherman of ortho, if you will.
Yeah, there you go. I like that term, and been called that a bit before. But so, we created interesting education that people would want to see no matter where they were in their practice life cycle. And all we really do is change of ownership work. So if you want to get into orthodontics, we can help you. If you want to get out, we can help you. If you need a partner in the middle, we can help you. If you want to merge two practices, we can help you. And then we did expand into recruiting, because we found that some people in certain areas have trouble attracting a doctor when they want to get out. So we do all that. We're only 9 people. We do it better than anybody else that does it, and we're just siloed in our specialty, so we know. We have the largest dossier on new and younger doctors in North America, and so we know everybody. They have a high level of trust in us. and the consultants of the orthodontic space learned that we weren't competitors. We can't make practices better. That's not what we know how to do.
Right.
But when they need somebody, the consultants would just say, "Hey, call Bentson," and so we grew that way, and it became a phenomenally successful company that I was happy to lead. And I just recently, at the end of last year, sold my remaining interest
Congratulations.
to my partners. That's the Copple and the Patterson.
Yeah.
And now I'm an associate. They hired me back.
Oh,
and
how about that?
So I'm working kind of full-time, part-time, I guess I call it, back for them,
like
which my
that
wife
phrase.
is very excited about because she's like, "You've traveled every week for 37 years
Yeah,
that we've
50
been together.
conferences.
You got to have a place to go." So I have an office, and I go there frequently.
As needed. Well, and I know JT touched on, and you as well, the different like arms, if you will, of BCPA, the different service offerings. Can you dive a little bit deeper into each of those for our audience?
Yeah, if you're a buyer and you need representation, which you do, in a transaction, and we're not working for the seller, we'll represent those buyers. So buyer representation is one. On the other side, if you want to sell your practice, which is probably 85% of our clients.
Right.
So these are the older people, my generation. We walk them through. This is something you do usually only once per career, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have very little knowledge of how it works, and you hear, but you don't really know. And so we hold their hand through the whole process. Our client relationships with our older docs that want to sell can start 2 or 3 years before they're ready, and then value the practice. And there's an art of accounting and art to do that. And then we can go find the buyer for them. That's the recruiting side of our business.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
And then we do a lot of teaching, and that's an income stream for us as well. And so pretty simple business, but any easiest way to think about it is any change of ownership for an orthodontist as they enter their career, exit, or need something in the middle, we can handle that transaction.
That's amazing.
So what would you say for the orthodontists that listen to the Underground, the MB2 Underground, or watch it on YouTube? What is the biggest thing that impacts valuations of orthodontic practices today that you guys have seen, or maybe a couple of the things, maybe not just the biggest, but a couple of things that really impact valuations today for orthodontists?
Yeah, well, when you buy any business, what are you buying? You're buying an income stream. And so profit is the biggest thing. In the last 3 years since 2021, which is that high watermark year where everybody did great, 22 was hard, 23 was hard, 24 was flat. And so we haven't grown. And so growth is hard. And when you value a closely held entity like a dental practice or orthodontic practice in our case, you look at the near-term trend, which is the last 3 years, as the best predictor to the buyer of practice performance in the near-term future. And so growth is a big plus. If you grew through this difficult time, you're going to value higher than if you didn't. Mm-hmm. If your overhead is more in control than out of control, you're going to value higher. And people tend to listen to a transition lecture or something like that and say, "Oh, the average of a practice that trades doctor to doctor is X," but that's just the average. The range is huge, mm-hmm. and so it's a good practice to be. Most of our clients will ask us about a term you may or may not like here at the shop. I don't know, corporate dentistry. Nobody likes to be called that.
Well, I'll tell you what, we certainly don't consider ourselves corporate, so we can all say we hate it.
Okay, fair enough. But for lack of a better word, consolidation in the various groups that do that. What would my practice value there? Because there's a lot of stories of values of $1 gazillion, yep. or much, much more than the doctor-to-doctor trade, which is true. And so we do a fair amount of our business today is helping doctors that want to entertain that understand the difference between a doctor-to-doctor transaction and a doctor-to-group transaction, and this mm-hmm. whole term of EBITDA and what does that mean and things like that, because you can get a great number. We feel like if you're an orthodontic practice that's doing above $3 million, you have to look at the groups mm-hmm. because there's not a young dentist out there that can afford to buy your practice, yep. and you get paid all cash. And so that's going to be a partnership, and that's a long-term deal. And so I think we understand the groups very well. We were early on in the formation of a lot of the orthodontic-centric groups.
Yeah.
And we certainly know MB2 as one of the most successful and the second biggest, I believe, consolidator of orthodontists. And so they're important to the people that we serve.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, when you start getting bigger practices like that, we encounter that a lot, even on the general side, or really in general, any side. You get younger docs that want to come in and buy, and they quite literally cannot afford it. And so, yeah, you get big practices and having the opportunity to explore and find a partner or a group that could come in and provide a better or a higher valuation, plus the absolute ability to exit or transition is certainly valuable.
And for the younger doctors, when I first started in orthodontics in 1988, 95% of the orthodontic residents that graduated would go buy a practice or start a practice or partner with an existing practice. Today, 85% go work as an associate. Mm-hmm. And so that's a fundamental seismic shift.
Oh, yeah.
Why is that happening? Educational debt is skyrocketed. And, most of your doctor partners will know this, but for orthodontists, that's 3 years and many times past dental school. The average educational debt of an orthodontic resident is $562,000. And so then you want to go buy a couple $1 million practice.
Right.
That's daunting. And so, the groups have offered really a safe landing space to learn your craft, increase your speed, understand what this business is about. And many stay and will for their career. We didn't have that option years ago. And some bounce out, and that's part of the struggle some of the groups have is doctor stickiness. How do we create an environment where this doctor wants to stay for a career?
Right. Well, and I know in the pre-show notes you talked a little bit about risk tolerance and that your risk tolerance is pretty high, but also that it's important for business owners to understand theirs going into this. Like, what advice would you give them to help them get a clear idea of that?
Yeah, it's a complex question because there's so many thoughts running through my head. What I tell young doctors is, if you know where you want to live, where you want to put down roots, whether that's where you grew up or where your spouse is from, those are the two most likely ones, or where you went to school or what have you, that really can define a lot of things, because you go look for a practice that has some cash flow that you can buy. That's the easiest way to get launched. And if you can't find one, start up. And if you're afraid of starting up, then try to find somebody to hire you. And so when you talk to bankers in dentistry, they hold the paper on the notes that they loan these young doctors.
Right.
Because the default rate is so low, it's the best performing part of their small business banking portfolio.
That's a fun
And so
fact.
it is very hard to screw this up. The bankers say sex, drugs, and rock and roll is really the only way to mess this up. And so, if you get a divorce, that can mess things up. You lose your license because of an addiction, that can mess things up. But it's very, very low occurrence. And so the risk tolerance, and doctors are very anal retentive. That's why they did so well in school for so long. A lot of these guys have never gotten a B. They don't know what that's like. And so their risk tolerance is very small compared to what the business realities are. And they have trouble sometimes launching themselves. And so I encourage them to take the risk. It's going to work out. They can pay off all their educational debt. They can build wealth for their family, security for their family, and they can have some extra left over for the things they really care about philanthropically. So it's one of the best gigs going when you look at, do I want to be a doctor, versus, in my little gentleman's farm community, I live around a bunch of doctors. They're miserable.
Yeah.
The dentists are pretty happy.
Well, everybody's got teeth.
Yeah, right.
So
Not everybody. That's very
It's a semi-recession-proof business, right?
That's right.
Because when they hurt, you got to fix them.
That's right. That's right.
Where do you think your high risk tolerance comes from?
I don't know, because my dad was an Air Force guy, and he was a very structured dude. But my mom was a little bit of an entrepreneur, so she had a stationery business in our house and things like that. And cool. I think just my intolerance of structure and rules doesn't allow me to perform at a high level inside a corporation. And so I wanted to be in charge of my own deal, and had some great young mentors in my life that encouraged me that it was possible for a guy like me to do. And so I think small business ownership is the bomb. It's worked great. It's the American dream. I feel like I've lived it.
That's cool.
So as we think about consulting and valuation, right now in this day and age, AI has become a huge, it's just huge, right? A huge everything about everything. So how do you see AI impacting what your, I'll call it now, old firm or BCPA? How do you see AI either incorporating or impacting BCPA and what you all do going forward?
Yeah, we're such a small piece. My business is in orthodontics, so we're kind of under the radar, and so I think we're insulated a little bit from what AI can do. When you look at general dentistry, all of a sudden, instead of 10,000 doctors in the U.S., you've got 150,000. AI can do some things in the valuation space, but I think where we really see it in dentistry is in the clinical side.
Yep.
So if you look at patient monitoring, if you look at aligners, if you look at all the software that's coming out for in the orthodontic space now, mass custom digital braces, it's all AI-driven, preference-driven, and what we're going to see in the future, I think, is doctors being able to produce more and work less and have fewer team members. And those are all really positive things for the profession. And I think they'll make more money and they'll do it smarter. And a fundamental shift in dentistry that people don't like to talk about a lot, but that is occurring is today, 64% of the general dental residents are female. And that matches in ortho. In pedo, 75%. And
girl power.
Yeah, and females, especially in their 30s and 40s, are by necessity way more efficient than men. And they value what AI can bring to do more in less time and be able to carve out time for the other things in life, whether they be family or hobbies or travel or anything else. They're wrapping their arms tighter around AI than the men are. And I think it's going to help drive it. But dentistry will be run by females, and it's going to take 12 years, I think, to get to 50-50 parity. And then after that, they have a majority for as long as I can see.
Hell yeah. We talked a little bit about AI in BCPA terms, but what sort of technology excites you when you think about like clinically in the ortho side?
Yeah. AI is huge in the aligner space because the software is learning doctor preferences. And so the headache in digital orthodontics or digital dentistry is you got to have the software needs to learn your preferences, the way you like to do things, to set them up and so forth. And we're getting to that now finally in the aligner space. What really excites me, and the reason really that I'm in town and got to see you guys, is mass digital custom braces. And so cool. You know, I'm on the board of KLO, and I've worked for Lightforce, which is another company. I think this is going to take over orthodontics, because if you think about it, right now, 1 in 4 cases in the United States orthodontically are with aligners. Mm-hmm. Most of those are adults. And we haven't really got a lot of buy-in for aligners for kids.
Sure. Because
moms go, my kid can't find his underwear. How is he going to, keep track of his aligners?
I lost my retainers enough times I needed ortho twice.
Right. So now, though, we could start every patient with a scan, and then the orthodontist can have a custom solution, whether it's aligners or braces, that's fit to the morphology of the patient's mouth. And the consumer's going to say, well, why do I care about that? Well, instead of 24 months in treatment, it's going to be a lot less. How much less? Up to half. But
wow.
Even if it's not half, it's much less.
Substantial.
And instead of seeing the orthodontist 18 times, I can only do 9 times. What are moms about? Efficiency. And so we love that, right? And the patient says, you mean I'm only going to be in braces for this long instead of this long? And so it checks a lot of boxes for the consumer, who really says to us they want efficiency and convenience when they go see the dentist. And that's going to be the future. And so I'm super excited. It's all driven by AI technology, and that's what makes it work. So I think that's where I want to spend the last lap of my career.
So I've got a 12-year-old who just got out of braces, but he would absolutely have loved to have been in them for a shorter period of time. I can promise you that. And he would have actually been one of those kids that knew exactly where his retainers were and was incredibly compliant.
Show off.
I mean,
That's a
it's
good
him,
kid.
not me.
You've got a good kid. He just had a hard case.
Yeah.
I didn't forget to wear my retainers. I just lost them a
Well,
lot.
yeah, exactly. So you spoke about, you've talked a little bit about aligners and being on the board at KLO. You also work directly with Align and a couple of other groups, or you have in your, like, how did you, was it a natural progression from what you guys are doing at BCPA and the education piece that got you hooked up with those guys, or how did that?
I think it was the education piece. I mean, really, as an entrepreneur, I am attracted to shiny things that are new. And Align's 27 years old now, but 15 years, and and then Lightforce came along and it was new, and so I got to do some work with them. There's a company called Dental Monitoring that from France that I've done some work for, and KLO and is in that vein too. So, I like to try to, with what I've learned in business and about the marketplace, help these companies, tell the consumer, which is their doctors, why this is a cool idea and why I think it's going to happen. So been early with those companies and loved my experiences with all of them. I wish all of them well, and I think they are the future. The future gets here a little bit slower than I would love to see it, but I can see it coming so clearly. And that's one thing I think I bring to the specialty. But spent a lot of time with Invisalign, was a key opinion leader, if you want to call it that, with them for 6 years. Spent a lot of time with Lightforce for the last 4 years. Spent a lot of time with Dental Monitoring for 4 years. And I'm kind of new at KLO, and because there's not a lot of board seats running around for anybody, but they called me and said, we've got an independent board seat. And I said, what is that really like? And my entrepreneurial spirit kicked in, and I said, man, this sounds cool. So that's how I got here.
I personally like the propensity for change. I know we've talked a little bit about your risk tolerance. We've talked a little bit about your entrepreneurial spirit and your lack of interest in rules. Where have you seen being open to change in your career, in your personal life, really lead you down an interesting new path?
Well, when I started this business, I had 2 board members that were just incredible business men. And they said, listen, Chris, you've got the vision, you can tell the story, but you're not disciplined enough to do the work. And so what you need is somebody that's not like you.
You need the yang to your yin.
Yeah. And so Doug Copple of the C part of the
Couldn't have BCPA without him.
Yeah, that's right. I said, how do I find that person? They said, listen, you're really an accounting firm, tax firm. That's what this thing is all about. Go find the youngest CPA in a Big 4 accounting firm in your town of Greensboro that's on the fastest road to partnership, and let's bring him on board.
Poach him.
And that's what we did. And thank God he said yes.
Yeah.
I mean, here's a guy that you can chain to the desk. He goes to the bathroom twice a day and just loves Excel, doesn't like to do speeches, doesn't like to travel. He's just he's a brain. He's just incredible. And so it freed me up. So I think, the lesson is, from a leadership standpoint and a risk tolerance standpoint, you have to know your gaps. Mm-hmm. And if you try to do the things that you're not gifted to do, mm-hmm. that's where a lot of frustration comes in. And I think when I look at dentistry, dentists are scientists. They think, and they look in a mouth and they think in millimeters and they think really small, but they're also really smart and academically. And so they try, when they get into a practice, to do everything. Mm. And when you talk to them, they can be very frustrated because they're not, as a group, great delegators. They're not, as a group, great leaders. They don't know how to do HR, and they hate it. And, mm-hmm. They don't know how to hire. They don't know how to fire or when to fire. They fall in love with their employees. And, they do all those things you shouldn't do as a leader. And so they either have to become what I call a velvet-covered brick and learn those things, or they have to have help with those things. What your group does is help with those mm-hmm. things. And so it frees the dentist up to treat at the top of their license. Mm-hmm. And all the stuff that they're not really skilled at as a group, some are, but most aren't. As a group, the groups can take care of. And I think that's been the attractiveness of the groups. I've been real surprised at the youth that is attracted to the groups, that's understanding that sooner in their career versus later. Because I thought for a while, 15 years ago, I thought the groups will be for the old guys. It's an exit strategy. I can take some chips off the table, get some equity, work for 5 years for a little bit less. They'll handle the stuff I don't like to do anyway. Right. But it's really, I think I heard what the average age of an MB2 doctor is 40-something. I mean, that's young. They got 20 years ahead of them. So why would you do that? Because you handle the things they don't do well. Yeah,
self-awareness being key, which is, I think, a lesson that even outside of dentistry, people can take away. Understanding what you may not be as skilled at, or you may not even enjoy. Instead of feeling like you've got to figure out how to make it work, finding somebody who does enjoy that.
Yeah. It's the old Rocky movie. You're probably too young to have watched those, but it's Rocky and Adrian. You got gaps, I got gaps. Together we fill each other's gaps, and that's the story. Go look it up. She hasn't heard that one yet.
Yeah, you lost me at filling each other's gaps.
No, the thing, I think the way you just put that with dentists having to become an orthodontist, or dentists in general having to become velvet covered bricks, like it's a really interesting, metaphor, I guess, is what it amounts to. I was never good at English. I was better at numbers.
Metaphor, yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I feel successful there. One of the things I think that attracts the younger crowd, at least to MB2, is that on top of the support there, that the gaps that they have and the things that they don't like to do, it also allows them to pick their heads up and say, okay, there are things I want to do with the practice. I just don't know how to do it by myself, nor do I have the time. And so you kind of marry those two things, the actual support and the doctor's thought leadership, and all of a sudden you're off on a rocket ship.
And I find the doctors in the groups actually, they gave me a tour of the shop, and I see all these pictures around, and I see the logos of each individual practice, and I've described this place as very thoughtful. But what they really enjoy is not only the work that you do for them with your team, but they enjoy getting together and sharing with each other and hearing how that specific doctor experienced your service. Mm-hmm. And it just feeds on itself, and it happens in the practice life world. I think when you get involved with a group, you're around people that have a lot of cool ideas, in whether that's an investment or health or your practice life or family, vacationing, travel. I mean, there's a lot that comes to being part of a group that's hard to measure financially, and so I think that's part of the attractiveness that comes out a little bit later after you join. You establish these relationships, and you really feel part of a team that you learn from each other.
The very first conversation I had with an MB2 partner, outside of Dr. V, because he was the first guy I talked to, but the first conversation I had with a partner at MB2 was, what drew you to the organization? My role here, I talk about the organization, I talk about the doctors, I talk about everything kind of broadly, and then in certain areas in depth. And that was his conversation, or that was his main point, was I'm not alone. Not only do I have the support, which the support of the MB2 team is great, but I have all these doctors I can go ask questions to, and I don't feel like I have to be defensive and protected because it's not my competitor down the street who I'm frenemies with that we're trying to figure things. No, these have become, over time, they become friends of mine, and I get to know them, and we take our kids skiing together, and I ask them about this clinical issue, and have they ever seen a patient that's done this, or I have, and that was something that when I got here in 2019 and I heard that, it really struck me as, oh, this is much bigger than just the X's and O's or the numbers on a page and the practices like in their own vacuum. This is a much, much broader experience.
I really agree with that. I mean, I think small business ownership, which dentistry qualifies for, is an enormously lonely place, because you have to figure it out. You have to do it yourself. You're not part of a big corporation and have a team around you to support you. And so it's very isolating, very lonely. And there's a real untalked about, mental health component in dentistry that we're starting to hear more lectures about, and people are starting to be a little bit more open about that. But it's very isolating. And I think one of the things the group provide is it sates that loneliness for the reasons that you mentioned.
When you were talking about the frenemies, I came up with a new metaphor for like group dentistry. I feel like corporate dentistry is like the plastics on Mean Girls, like the frenemies, where it's like, oh, we're all nice, but like we all hate each other. And we're just trying to make everybody be more like Katie Heron. Like, let's all just be friends and be cool and hang out.
I didn't understand any of that. Who are the Mean Girls?
Karma
Who's
for
Katie?
Rocky.
I don't know. I mean, really, this is payback.
Look, I don't know what it says about me, but I got both of those, so maybe I'm in a sweet spot.
Yeah, you're cooler.
So
you're very hip.
Maybe just the right age. As we talk about our doctors getting together, getting to know each other, and bouncing ideas, or just having these conversations, vacationing is something that comes up often. Sarah and I understand you are quite the traveler.
That was such a good segue. I was literally just going to be like, so tell us about Paris. That was really good.
Well, you can. Keep going.
Just credit where credit's due.
I appreciate that. So where you've been to all 50 states, and I know you've been internationally. Because
Wait, which one was your favorite?
My last one, Maine, probably.
Oh, that's a good one.
Was it because it was the last one?
Yes. Okay. And the lobster rolls.
Yeah.
Which one was your least favorite? Let's get controversial.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of a city in one of the states. Chicago just never really did it for me.
Really?
I never really felt comfortable there.
You know what? I'm kind of with you on Chicago. Maybe it's because I live in Dallas.
Yeah.
I think Chicago, I've been to Cubs games. They're tons of fun.
Yeah.
But my wife really wants to go. She's never been to Chicago. And like, I just can't really describe Chicago to you other than we go and you kind of
I know the key to Chicago. I know the key.
What is the key?
I didn't expect to like Chicago. I don't like cities in general. Big cities in general, but my husband lived there for 3 years.
Well, there you go. I mean,
So
that's
I got
not
to
fair.
see Chicago through somebody who like lived there and he would go on like the architectural boat tours on a Saturday because he was bored.
Okay.
So I got to see I got to be there with somebody who loved it, which made it more exciting.
That's fair.
But two got to show me the sides of Chicago that aren't on TripAdvisor. So I think that if y'all tried it one more time, I didn't think I'd be here
My wife
plugging
really wants
Chicago.
to go there too. She's never been, and
You
I'm
tell me,
like,
I'll get you some recommendations.
Okay, you can set us up.
Okay, sorry, keep going.
No, I just wanted to know if there was any, like, where your favorite place to travel in general was. Sarah has alluded to, you've been to Paris, because that was actually in our notes, and I guess something significant happened in Paris.
Yeah, it's a fun little story.
You were just a wee lad. You were 21?
Yeah, I was 21. My dad was in the Air Force and he flew jets, and then he got out of the Air Force and he flew internationally for an airline that you probably won't know, but you probably will. TWA.
Trans World Air.
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
And so
He's nailed us at this point.
you had
Yeah, he has.
we traveled a lot as a family, and one of the cool things is after you'd been with TWA for so many years, your dependents, your kids, got a credit card where you could just get, if there was space available, you could go anywhere in the network.
That's
And so I got to travel a lot. Well,
That's amazing.
you lost that when you lost your dependency on your parents, which is
You
when you
aged out of
graduate
the
from
program.
college. Yeah. So I was graduating from Baylor, and in December of '84, and my dad said, "Listen, I'm going to Paris. For your last trip, why don't you go with me? And then me and the crew have to go to Tel Aviv and spend the night, and then so you'll be there one night with us, one night by yourself, and then we're coming back. We'll have another night together." And so I went to Paris on my last trip. I'm 21 years old. I have my first job waiting for me in Houston, Texas, and I've got a night free when my dad's away with the crew in Tel Aviv, and I'm in the hotel. It's 8:00 at night. I'm going, I'm 21. What in the world am I doing? And I'm in Paris in the hotel room. So I go to the concierge and I said, "Hey, can I get a ticket tonight to the Moulin Rouge? I'm going to go see the dancing girls."
Okay.
So good thing for a Baylor boy to do. And he said, "Listen, there's two shows. They're always sold out. But if you show up before the midnight show, somebody won't show up and you'll get a ticket. So just hang out in front of the ticket booth before midnight at the Moulin Rouge in Montmartre." So that's not such a great part of town.
All of my red flags are going up. Yep.
At that time. But I thought, cool, man, I'm going to go see, standing room only seat and to see the Can-Can girls and everything like that. So I
See
get
their
there.
can-cans?
It's December, so I've got it's cold, and I've got a long coat on, and I take a cab over there, and I get out, and within like 10 minutes, this guy that speaks perfect English comes up to me and says, "Do you need a ticket for tonight's show?" And I'm like, "This is amazing." And I said, "Yes." And he goes, "Well, I've got a little shop down the block here.
Oh, God.
Follow me." And that's where the ticket is.
A woman would never.
I'm like, "Cool." And so I go, we start walking. It's getting darker. We're getting further away from the lights. And I'm going, this is not a good idea. But at which point, he opens this shop front door. There's a stairwell that goes down, and he throws me down the stairs.
Oh, no.
And I'm thinking to myself, my dad's in Tel Aviv. He's going to be really pissed at me.
As you're like tumbling down the stairs.
I said, in my back pocket, I have my U.S. passport, which I needed to get to Houston because I'm flying to Houston for my first job. And I have a cashier's check for like $1,200, which is all the money I had in the planet. And I'm going, my life is over if this guy gets all that.
Yeah.
And so he's trying to reach in my back pocket, but he can't get into it because my long coat is on. So
hold on.
I did what the ladies are trained to do, and I kicked him in the nether region. Mm-hmm. He let go of me. I fly up the stairs. I jump on a cab in front of the show that I had planned to see. I said, "Take me to this hotel." My heart's beating at about 200 beats a minute. And I look in the mirror in the bathroom, and I've got claw mark on my face of his fingernails that scratched my face, so which really upset me because I said, now I got to tell my dad. Yep. But I got mugged in Paris at 21, so that's my Paris story.
That is a wild story. I did not expect that. I honestly, you say he was digging around in your back pocket. I was like, are you sure he wanted your money? Like maybe he was just, he thought you were
He wanted my money, which he would have been very disappointed.
Did the claw marks go away by your first day of work? Or did you have to like go in and be like, sorry about those?
I think it was just kind of at that point, it was like, because when my dad got back, the crew, and at that time they were called stewardesses, they were like, let's go dancing, let's, celebrate, that's so cool. And I was still pretty scared, but it was a fun story of traveling lore. I'm glad it didn't work out worse.
Yeah, me too.
Golly.
I know we're out of time. I have so many follow-up questions, like the stairs, like where, anyway.
How many stairs? Yeah, give us that.
I don't know. These little shops where.
Just a couple of stairs down?
No, it's like 8.
Okay, yeah.
But like into the basement.
Yeah, and then
he just jumps on you.
Yeah, it was scary.
I'm really sorry that happened. I'm really glad you're okay.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, is there anything we didn't talk about that you wanted to touch on?
I would just say that I try to tell audiences to remember how fortunate they are that are practicing in this field or whatever you're doing. I mean, but in dentistry, there's a lot of a wet blanket feel here and there. It's harder today to make a buck in dentistry than it was 20 years ago. Consolidation, and is that good or is it bad?
Yeah.
When you look around at what you could be doing if you weren't doing dentistry, the better options are so few. And so embrace where you are, get the help where you need it. Be a little bit more honest with yourself about what you can do, what you can't do. And, just enjoy this life that you have such a pleasure of doing. And you really do make an impact on people. So I would just encourage our audience that are dentists to hear that.
I like it.
I love that. I think that's applicable to even the audience members that aren't dentists.
Yeah. Or the co-hosts.
That's great. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Chris, thank you for joining us today. MB2 Undergrounders, we are at the end of today's episode. I want to give a shout out to a couple of our orthodontic partners who have been on with Sarah and myself and Joe. So, if you're interested in orthodontics, Dr. Hildebrand's episode is episode number 2. We've got Dr. Kelly Toombs at 44, Dr. Greg Greenberg at 45.
Spitting bars.
And Dr. Steve Lucarelli, I think his title was The Good Times in the Bad Times?
Finding the good
in the bad.
All 4 of those guys I know and are just incredible people.
Which one's your favorite? No, I'm just kidding.
So Dr. Lucarelli's episode's number 65, but please go listen to those. There's more orthodontic insights there, but like I said, hey, we're at the end. We'll see you guys next time.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.